Brother Jonas.
Brother Black, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How you doing, sir?
Doing well in yourself?
Oh man, I
Looking
cannot
good for the
complain.
start?
I cannot
Mm-hmm.
complain. Um, we had the closing of a pivotal election, and so
Pivotal
being
in
able
the
to
sense
say again.
that nobody, I said pivotal in the sense that nobody made the pivot to come out to vote.
Right. Right. Yeah. That part. Yeah, man. And we definitely gonna get into that. But man, I'm just feeling really blessed. Um, you know, getting past this primary and now really kicking off the campaign. Man, I really feel good. It's always something to be a part of this process, and it's supposed to be transformative. And so I'm really looking in the future and seeing how I am going to be in a completely different situation and be able to really affect change here in Missouri, man, in a way that I've never envisioned before. So that's exciting, and I know it's a lot of work. I'm prepared for that part, and so waking up today, looking at all the results, looking at all the numbers, I'm excited for what we have coming up, man. How about yourself?
And it's very exciting to be a part of all this. And I'm glad you're able to look forward with the vision, and have that and see yourself in that position because that's what we're lacking in a lot of what we saw. That's why people weren't coming out to vote. And I think people are going to be very excited about your race and very excited about your candidacy because you're bringing something to the table that hasn't been at the table in a long time. People want some substance. They hungry, and we see people are not tuning in to what they want to one of the most important things in our lives is politics, and people really have tuned out, and we can't blame them. We can it's become a part of the parties and the people running and then how they're conducting themselves in campaigns that we've seen the fallout of people not paying attention or wanting to be a part of this conversation, political conversation. They're not even using hope or inspiration anymore. They're using anger and confusion. You know, how many campaign commercials did you see that made you feel good? Or made you feel inspired? Instead, they was like, "Don't vote for that guy."
Hey,
He
Brother Jonas, doesn't that kind of fly against what you would hear from maybe all the consultants and people who interject themselves in the campaign? Don't you always hear, man, you got to attack them, you got to go hard, you got to put a whole bunch of dirt on them and all those different things. I mean, you were in elected office, so let people know a
and
little bit about
yeah,
behind the scenes what
yeah,
goes on in that consulting world that gets people to do a lot of that back and forth mudslinging. Because one of the things that I saw, I didn't expect to see it, is how hard the three governor candidates were going at each other on the Republican side. And then it really even amazed me to see Crystal Quid, I believe her last name is Quid, actually pull it out for the
right.
Democrats. I know
Mhm.
she was going
Yeah,
up against that guy Michael Hamra. I know he had all kinds of money behind him, and he was
yeah,
putting
he
on
did, he
a,
did,
a, a
and she
pretty a
quite
pretty
honestly
strong display. And I thought that he was actually gonna take the seat. But now
denied.
you got Crystal.
Yeah. What well what you see is that's a very strong play out. And like when I first went in office around 2005, uh it was when term limits kicked in. And so before then, politicians didn't really have consultants. People had they had earned their stripes by working in the neighborhood groups and coming up and being committee people and working on elections. And, you knew how to run a campaign. But as you know, the as I went on in office, I began to see these people come in office with consultants. Now all of a sudden, there's these people who were jumping in and using polls and trying to brand themselves rather than run a campaign. And what we've seen is people, now we've got campaigns now, as you said. That Republican campaign was like watching a WWE match, with those it was going hard in the paint. I was like, wow. I was like, and this is in
Yeah,
the same party.
Hey, shout out to Bill Eigel, man, because Bill Eigel, he really came out and demonstrated, man, that there is no desert or there's no desire, and that Missouri is really beyond, the elitism type of politics. I mean, Jay Ashcroft had a name, man. His father
Yeah,
was big in Missouri. I mean, I think he was even the attorney general for the country, at one
yeah,
point, right?
yeah. His father served in office in Missouri.
Right,
And Ashcroft is a strong name. And
right.
you see, yeah, it's all, and that's all how we've
Because they
shown
were
how
counting they
consult
were counting Bill Eigel out, man. They were really counting Bill Eigel out.
they
But
really were. They really
Eigel
were.
put up some numbers.
He did. He put up some numbers because he actually, in a lot of his thing too, he shared ideas, but at the same time, they've gotten to this point where they're just smacking at each other. It's like watching kids on a playground who can't fight. It's not even entertaining. You know what I mean? People like to watch a good fight, but when people can't fight and you're watching, it's like, oh. And so that, as you said, with the rise of consultants, you've seen now people, I call them plastics or pretenders, because if you had to be giving a bullet list or messaging in order to speak on what you believe in, then what are you really saying in office? That's why I can't stand the commercials when they say, and I endorse this message. I would hope so. It's your commercial. You just said for 30 seconds, you told people why you should run for office and why they should vote for you. And then you're going to tell me I endorse this message. Not vote for me. I'm the one. You say I endorse this message. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But we continue to see this. And as we've noticed, people won't talk about it, but the correlation of voter turnout goes down because the politician also has gotten a bad rap in the past 20 years. Like the worst thing when I was coming up, they used to make fun of used car salesmen, and now a politician, if you get labeled a politician, now all of a sudden you're a scumbag. You can't say nothing. You can't have a valid opinion, and a lot of that is because consultants have taken us off the path of where we're supposed to be about governing and inspiration and hope, and put it into more of a media grooming situation where people are getting elected and then they have no idea what to do when they get down there. I mean, how else can you talk about the same thing for almost 20 years? Because nobody's got any new ideas. They're watching the same script. And so if they assume that if this person's running off that and it piggybacks, and now what we've got is a culmination of a dumpster fire in politics. And that's why it's exciting for people such as you to see you running and to be a part of it, because we're talking about ideas. We're talking about, times like now where people pockets are lean. We're talking about economic advantages that we're trying to bring back to the community. We're talking about, correctional changes. We're talking about things that are truly going on, bringing jobs back to Missouri, bringing jobs back to the community, and alleviate some of the pain and suffering that's been going on that they continue to ignore because they're not really a part of the community. They hire a consultant, and they sometimes, a lot of times, we see if they're supported by the party, you've seen this, well, they'll dump a lot of money behind somebody, and so they build this image, and then that person goes in there and they carry the water party rather than the community. We're even seeing it on the Republican side now, even more so, where now these people they're not even in Congress. They're not even trying to do the business of the people. They're consistently talking about, well, this is all about the next election, and this is all about, trying to get TV and trying to get press, when it should be all about governing. It should be all about trying to get these jobs made, trying to keep our schools intact. But as you can see by these numbers, people are not coming out to vote, and that's I mean, like
I mean, you
that's
got 223,923 voters, and man,
Yeah,
43,000 ballots cast.
that's that's crazy. You know what I mean? That's less than a quarter almost. And so what are we talking about here? And this is why people always say they don't have any power and their vote doesn't count. And so they're dwindling it down to now the people who are voting and do have are using their power. It has come to such a point now where these are the choir people. So anything that they do in office, nobody's there to really hold them accountable like they used to. You know, these numbers, and then some of these people.
Now these are now the numbers right here, right? These are the Republican numbers. Because remember, the Republican turnout was miserable. I mean,
Uh-huh.
when we look at it, I mean, out of the 43,000 ballots that were actually cast, only 30 or 35,000 of those ballots were Democrat, 7,000 Republican. Look at that.
Yeah. And see, and that's crazy, and especially
Now,
when they are the
we know
majority in this.
that Kehoe took it for the state, right?
Yeah.
He's now the Republican nominee, going into the general in November.
Uh-huh.
Right?
And it was such a close vote. It was
So
400 votes between him and Ashcroft. Like, man,
right.
that's
No,
crazy.
Ashcroft was pretty big here in Kansas, or in Jackson County, and in the Kansas City area. Now he didn't do so well out in St. Louis and in other parts of the states. But now remember, Brother Jonas, we're past the primary, right? And when we talk about our little island here in Kansas City, right? What do you believe that someone like Mike Kehoe should be doing? And I'm pretty sure I know your answer. Or do you believe, or what do you believe, or do you believe that Mike Kehoe will try to make a presence here in Kansas City in the Black community and demonstrate that he is willing to earn the Black vote as a Republican here in Kansas City?
I think that's what's remarkable about what you're doing and what we're trying to accomplish together is be that platform and that stage to bring Mike Kehoe in, to stand there next to him and say, look, this is where you stand next to him and say, I've got this vision for the community and you're supporting me, and I'm showing the community the governor is willing to support me in my agenda going forward, and that he's in touch with the community is what we would want to see. But we know that in this little island that it's been a while since there's been a Republican in running for office. And so generally, I wouldn't even think Kansas City.
Well, not for the governor, not for the governor. We've had a few Republican governors, right? And the only thing that I'm saying is that when again, like we talked about last week, all of our politics is local, right? And one of the things that I'm always frustrated about, and I know a lot of people are frustrated about this same issue because it demonstrates in the numbers. They didn't come out. As a matter of fact, when I was standing outside one of the polls yesterday, I just kindly asked the gentleman, I said, are you going to vote Republican or are you voting Democratic, if you don't mind me asking you? And he was like, listen, why does it matter? Both of them are a piece of anyway. And so and basically, I had to understand where the man was coming from, but of course I did tell him, I'm running under the Republican banner. And I believe that that when the gentleman came out, I did earn his vote. But one of the things that I'm saying is that we have had Democrat, Republican, it doesn't even matter, right? Both parties have looked at Kansas City and sometimes St. Louis, and I'm just again I'm speaking on my side
Yeah.
of the aisle here, right? Or my
Uh-huh.
side of the of the Gaza Strip, as they like to call it, right?
Yeah.
That little slither that we
Yeah.
call Kansas City, right next to the state line. And so, speaking from where we're coming from, we need more political engagement. That's the reason, like you
Mhm.
said, that we continuously urge people to get involved in the process. And I get ecstatic. One of the benefits about being out yesterday is I was able to see a lot of young people show up, with their parents to cast their votes for the first time. And you
Oh,
would
that's exciting.
really, and I
Mhm.
mean, you would really be amazed, right, when you see the
Mhm.
enthusiasm that those young men and women were having, as they were coming out of the polls, just casting their vote for the first time. I can't necessarily say I had that much enthusiasm when I cast my first vote, but it was rewarding to know that they have now formed an opinion, even if right now their opinion was given to them by their mother or their father or
Yeah,
somebody in their household,
that's
which is a
correct.
good thing because
But that just
far too
goes to show.
often that is not happening in the first place. So it was good to see a lot of people, bring their kids, bring their children along, get them involved into the process because it demonstrates that they're starting early, right? And
Well,
another thing.
you're right. You're right.
And,
But the
and well,
thing is,
let me ask you this, brother Jonas, because I know that you'll speak passionately about this topic, right? Because we're always talking about our political
Mhm.
history, where we came from, right? Well, one of the things that very
Uh-huh.
much so surprised me yesterday was this young lady who had a lot of affinities for Donald Trump, and she was black, and
Mhm.
I won't necessarily say what organization that she was working for, but you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what
I'm
you're
not
talking
trying to
about.
get I'm not
Yeah.
trying to get the
Mhm.
lady exposed, but she was telling me that she was starting to listen to some of the things that Trump was saying. And of course, there were a lot of people there that didn't necessarily agree with the things that Trump was saying. But I just
Mhm.
found it, really refreshing when you start to see people start to open up to the idea of being Republican.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
I think that because, well, first off, it feels like people haven't been given a choice in our community for far too long. They've been put in a box and been told this is what you have to be, or you're not. I mean, Joe Biden even thought he could make a joke and say you ain't black if you don't vote Democrat. Like that's how, in their minds, how far it has gone, where they automatically assume that our vote should go to the Democratic Party. And that blew me away. And partly that is in our fault in the black community, because we talk about block voting, and it's great that you saw young people coming out, but remember, it's funny as we get on in age, we may not have been exuberant like the kids today, but when we went to vote, they were on our necks about voting. They had get out the vote campaigns constantly. They were constantly saying, you have to exercise your vote. You have to pay attention to politics. You have to come out and be a part of this process. And so when we were going to vote, we went and did it, but it was more like marking it like, yeah, now see, I did it. I paid attention. Nah, I'm not necessarily voting for who you voting for, but I'm here and I'm voting. And so, and we slapped that ballot down. But now, as we said, it's become a media circus. Now we're in a 24-hour thing where these people are posting 24/7, on social media, and we're seeing such a disconnect again with the idea of what you're supposed to be in office to do, to govern. You know what I mean? To create policy and to actually be a part of maintaining the system that we live in, that we all like to enjoy. But it really it blows me away when people who are in office say, "Oh, America is dead." I'm like, bro, it's your job to keep America alive. Why would those words ever come out of somebody's mouth in office? And that blows me away. And then we have this constantly disparaging of the system itself. Like you're in power to make policy and to make change, and yet here all you're doing is throwing slinging mud and creating issues out of nothing. Like the fact that immigration is a hot topic when we're an immigrant country. You know, it shows how much they've been manipulating and using polls and using, messaging to take us away from things that truly matter in the community. And there's been a disconnect. As you said, when we get back to the local level, there's a disconnect completely now where people do not feel as if, especially, I'm tired of voting for the less like, you know. And then these people who are voting or running for office oftentimes, like Crystal Quaid, for instance, like she was only been a rep for maybe, she hadn't even got to her full 4 terms yet, and yet she's running for governor, and that there should be some experience when you get these jobs. You know what I mean? Like you need to know what you're doing. And we've got, on the other side with Kehoe and Eigel and Ashcroft, they got so entangled in the infighting, none of them got a chance to present what they were really going to do for the state, and that's why they checked out. You know what I mean? Their party checked out. Like the voter turnout on that is such a crushing blow that I would have to look at the state party and be like, what's going on? Like, what are we doing here? And because that is how the other side's going to be away at this supermajority they've had, because they've really kind of fallen into this rut over the past 15 years where they keep pushing this same kind of rhetoric. And the rhetoric is that we care about guns, gay people, and abortions, and that's all we're going to talk about. Meanwhile, your property taxes are going through the roof. The schools are letting kids graduate that can't even read. Prisons and prison sentencing is so out of control that we haven't done anything to correct the correctional system. Taxes and state, the property tax issue has gotten to the point where the average person is paying more than a corporation. And yet none of these are talked about. And people is losing their houses. The groceries and inflation has gone beyond the roof. And yet nobody says anything about how they're going to improve their lives. They just say, oh, an immigrant might be wandering through your neighborhood. Of course it's an immigrant wandering through the neighborhood. They've been here.
Right. And look how that works, brother Jonas. Like, so one of the things that we know, right, is that our political establishment here in Kansas City, Missouri, as you can see, it's all Democrat, right? And I have especially notice, the corrupt nature of the Democratic Party. And I'm just keeping it a absolute 100 a buck, right? The nature of the Democratic Party is so corrupt in that you see, like, even our mayor, right? One of the reasons why we know that we have such a issue with the police here is because we can't keep police in the police department. You don't have, anytime when you take away leadership, and anytime when you have the nerve to actually disparage the leadership that even exists within the police department, nobody wants to be an officer of the law. Nobody wants to participate in the administration that we have currently. And it is almost if, the conversation that I hear consistently, I don't know about you, because I don't agree with the mayor at all. I mean, absolutely none. And it even upsets me how he has no concern with showing his basically lapdog nature for the Democratic Party. I mean, because as soon as Joe Biden said he was, or as soon as Joe Biden said that he's going to continue to his presidency, right? What did Mayor Q do? Oh, we riding with Biden and all that good stuff. Everybody was on Joe Biden, but as soon as Joe Biden got lynched basically and taken out by a coup, from the powers that be, next thing you know, here goes our mayor. He done switched up. Now he's with Kamala. And every single thing that we see that comes from his administration is all basically either the talking points of the Democratic Party, the ideologies of the Democratic Party, and the type of liberalism that I understand. A lot of Republicans, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I joined the Republican Party. When I had looked at myself and where I was in life, right? And the things that I was more concerned about, my economics, my family, the
Uh-huh.
education of the education of my son, safety in the community. When I started to look up, they didn't have any space for black men in that in their
Well,
ideology
it's the
or
space
their
is
type of way of dealing with these issues. So once they moved, I had to make a decision and I had to move myself. And so right now
I'm
we
gonna
see
say
that
it's not
just
the
like
space. Let me jump
I'm
in. You're
sorry,
right.
go ahead.
It's not that they don't have the space, it's that they try and keep you in a space. You know what I mean? It's as if they're trying to keep you. The Democratic Party says, no,
Right, and
we're
if they're
going to
trying to keep
define
you,
it.
and if they
We
trying
want
to
you to
keep
stay
you in a
on.
space,
Yeah, you
that's
know what
not
I
a
mean?
space for
Yeah,
me.
like no, yeah, like no, like we Django, we ain't Steve. You know what I mean? And like it's not like you can't keep me here and tell me my community is doing well as I watch it fall apart. And I see these people carry water time after time, and yet then complain and say outrageous things when they're the ones in position to make the difference, but yet they won't because their party is putting down messaging. And having been inside the Democratic Party, I can tell you that if you go and you step out of their role and you say, "No, I'm not doing that," then they'll try to malign you. As we've seen, they'll try to even question, like you're like you can come in my community and question my character or what defines me as a black man.
Oh,
And if I
you mean
stand
like
up,
Joe Biden saying, if you're not black, if you're not voting for me?
yeah, again, like, are you crazy, fool? And so, but on both sides, and then we as black people have to stand up and say, look, we're defining ourselves, period, going forward. If we're gonna be Republican or Democrat, this is how I'm coming. I'm not asking y'all what to do. I'm telling you what to do because we are a part of this community. We are just as much as everybody else. And so this idea that we continually play, like we're the right hand looking to the left when we are here in the middle and we carry huge a huge block of votes on our back that can sway an election either way. And then Republicans need to understand too, because as I said, joining, which we come over from there, because when they get to talking defund the police, like, whoa, like slow down, like y'all tripping. Like we need the police. Like I get they're out of control and everything, but you're taking it too far. Like how about instead we end the war on drugs because it's been a complete failure.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's roll back some of those laws.
but again, brother Jonas, that's where it becomes really dangerous messing with this ideology. It really does. And
Mm-hmm. It
I
does.
think far too often we forget how powerful these ideas are, and when these ideas starts to mix themselves with other types of ideas, I mean, it's almost like you have a powder keg. You have something that's ready to explode because not only do we see
Mm-hmm.
the defund police movement coming from the Democratic Party, but we also see the lack of respect for masculine men within the Democratic Party, and we also see a overrepresentation of and no disrespect, it's like I was telling this young lady the other day. I was raised in a single parent household. My mother raised me, right? And so there is nothing wrong with having
Mm-hmm.
reverence for single parent mothers, because I know that single parent mothers have gotten it done and they are still getting it done. But if we understand that one of the
Mm-hmm.
difficult things or issues that we have in the black community is single parent homes, then we have to look at ways to correct that type of dynamic, right? And so when I look at the
Rebuild the
Democratic Party and I
family.
see the
You know what I mean?
overrepresentation of certain elements, those elements are actually working against the family. And that's one of the reasons, like, people ask me, what's my platform all the time? What's my platform? What it is that I'm standing on is faith, family, and job creation. And when I talk about job creation, I'm talking about from the standpoint of small business, helping out the small business, the independent entrepreneur. And one of the things that far too often, I even heard it yesterday, is that we even forget that a lot of our real estate has been brought up by multi-trillion-dollar corporations and have actually squeezed out, you know, the local rental owner and property owner, and that they are actually suffering from the different governmental policies that are not even recognizing them as a small business enterprise. And so, you know,
Yeah, and then when they leave us
so
scorched. It's almost
and
as
just
we
it
get
just
the broken glass season.
yeah. Yeah, so
You know, in our
and I was just
communities when they, you know, people do that.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, boy, it's just that when they do that, when they abandon us and they abandon the community, and then that when a small business wants to go in and try to get back and rebuild inside that community, there is no access to the economic means or the financial tools to help them bring back those jobs to the community that were once in place in that community. You know, they've created this myth and this narrative that the black community didn't wasn't it's been a hood. You know, it was a neighborhood. It had commerce. It had business owners. It had doctors' offices. It had dentist offices. We had all of these things within the community, but there was such a push towards corporate and towards you know, this ideology in the 80s and the 90s of just sheer profit without purpose that we as you said, ideas combining with ideas becomes dangerous. And then when you've got lack of training amongst people going into office, and so they can't have the wherewithal to sit down and come up and pull these ideas apart and sit down and come up with a critical solution rather than just adding on and adding on. We've got people now in prison for crimes, you know, that at one point would, you know, made sense, and now, you know, you're going in for 40 years, 30 years, and then you got people getting out and they can't get a job, and then, you know, or you can't go to school. You've got education system now that they call a pipeline to prison if you're in the public school. And then even if you graduate from that school system, you can might graduate reading on an 8th grade level, you know. And so, but yet we've got where these systems now where they're not even teaching you to critically think. They teach you for a test. And so now we've got these teachers who are there and they do not, like, we spoke, you know, we'll jump, and I'm trying not to jump around because you hit a lot of great points too, because you spoke about the family and the men in the community. And a lot of those men have been put behind bars and taken from them because they were trying to provide for their family in, you know, in any means in the culture created by the laws put forth by the Democratic Party. And now when it swings to the right, now they created a system that's almost a trap. So if you get out, you're stuck in this permanent poverty pimping cycle, you know, and they want to hold you within that nexus so that you can't break free. And if you try to break free, then it becomes a struggle that they then use to paint as if it means the whole black community when we know there's a poor white community as well. We're talking about an underclass in America that they've allowed to thrive in this system on the left rather than on the right now, where we see them trying to instill in a sense of family again, community, coming together, working hard, you know, understanding the importance of economic stability and ownership, and, you know, in having a family and a strong presence. Because as you say, like, I never thought there would be a time in America, like, I don't care what your sexuality is. That is your business. But you know, when you become to the point
right,
now where we're discussing how you identify, like, come on, we're not even talking about business anymore. Like, I want to wake up and
right,
identify as a Chinese billionaire, but that don't make it so, you know. But I
right.
should be talking about how are we going to instead reinvigorate the
No,
industry.
and again, brother Jonas, and let me encourage people, please, 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 if you like what you've been hearing thus far, and if you appreciate what we have been doing thus far, please, we got about 9 viewers. So at least the 9 viewers that are watching this video right now, or the 9 participants right now, please like, please share. And if you can, if you find that you have it within your budget or within your means, go to the website, Derron Black form or dblackformo.org. Donate $5. Please, please, please. We need your help in this battle. We need your help in this fight. And so we have to get out
Because
flyers and mailers in our local community to, and I know sometimes it might be confusing, why am I a black man, running under the Republican Party? Well, let me tell you why. That is very clear and very simple. I come from a heritage in the background where we like to say, leave me alone. And so I got that from my brother, Vincent Evan Ellison. And so that's really where we're coming from. We understand that there has just been too much intervention and too much doings with the black community that has actually set the black community back. So now we're breaking free from all that. We're creating a new way because we understand that the politics has to justify the economics, right? And right now, the politics are not justifying the economics. The politics are involved in too many different things that are actually hindering people from thriving and living their best lives. You can't live your best lives, your best life if you are struggling and you are doing without. I come from the struggle. I know what it's like to go through the struggle. Shoot, I mean, every day is a struggle, but it's a beautiful struggle. And at the same time, we need people who understand that. And I'm one of those people who do understand that. And I'm one of those folks who have learned how to develop the capacity to represent other people. And you need people to have that type of mindset, to have that type of ambition, and to have that passion, because it doesn't take much to be a state senator. I promise you it doesn't. But one of the key things that it does take, it takes somebody who's committed to doing the job and willing to be humble and willing to be accountable to the folks that they represent. And if you know anything about me, please look me up, go to that website. And if you want to, you can even send me an email, black.kcmo@gmail.com. I would love to talk with you. I would love to engage with you, and even put your contact information or email address in the comments or anywhere. But reach out to this campaign. We need you. And so, Brother Jonas, go ahead and get back to what you're saying. I'm sorry. I had to make that PSA.
And so, because, no, you got to, because you're a candidate. That's what you do. You didn't see that passion and see that spirit. That is what a candidate is supposed to have. And it's not just reading off the same things. Because like when I got back to identity, somebody will try and take that to a place where I didn't mean it, when I just want to talk about, I'm tired of talking about social politics that have tried to make me think a certain way, where that has nothing to do with how come my paycheck has more taxes taken out of it now? How come my paycheck is not worth the value of cost of living? How come the groceries keep going up inside the grocery store, yet my cost of living is not keeping with that? Yet businesses are still getting the same amount of taxes and tax subsidies, and I'm not feeling that I, as a person who's going to work every day, or even if I'm struggling, we've seen people now who are working poor. That's what they call it. Like that the idea that they're trying to normalize a phrase like that. You know what I mean? So they can justify a company who is not paying somebody or people who take these wages and think that they
Brother
can
Jonas,
live off of it. So much
I got
wrong. Like
I got one more. I got one more election, that I want us to speak on, as we were kind of, trying to get through the list here. Let me pull this one back up, because I was really surprised by this election. I had the opportunity to be on a panel with my, Democratic, opponents, right? And so one of the things, or one of the races that I thought was pretty interesting with this was this race right here. I'm pretty sure you know Patrick Contreras, right?
Yes.
What do you think about that race right there between Patrick Contreras and Patty Lewis? It looks like they'll be going up against my friend Joey LaSalle. So shout out to Joey. But it looks like he's going to be going up against Patty Lewis, man. Joey, I know Joey is amped up about his race. He's been working hard, doing what he needed to do. He didn't have an opponent, with his race as well. But what are your thoughts about Patty Lewis
I mean,
ousting or
Patty,
being able to?
I will say this, she really did. She surprised me in her. She came through with ideas. She, I want to say, like, she came with what presented ideas that she was going to do if she was given the chance, and she stuck to them. She really, I mean, and for a Democrat, I mean, like, she kind of took a hard line I thought that people obviously resounded with. I mean, and I think Patrick, he went more the standard approach where he tried to stay in that social middle ground in where they do
Right,
now with the Democrats,
right,
and people are tired of hearing that. Just like people
right.
are, they're tired of extremism on both sides.
Now
Everybody's
look,
tired of.
now it's crazy that you say they tired of extremism on both sides, man, because that's one of the
Mhm.
things that I'm obviously seeing here in this election. You said that Patrick was in the middle. He told the middle of the road. In my opinion, Patty is way extreme, man. She is very extreme when it comes to the COVID-19, locking people down and vaccinating people. I believe Patty is all with that. I believe Patty is for whatever type of government control, that they can figure out, that they can muster, man, to interfere with your life. So anybody listening to this, please, 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 please go check out Joey LaSalle, man. Joey LaSalle is and Joey LaSalle is not one of the crazy type of Republicans in this state, man, because we do have a few of them. I mean, I'm not gonna lie
Yeah,
to you, we do have a
and
few
see,
of
and
them.
that's the
But
problem with
but
the
but man,
Republican Party is that
I
they
want to encourage people to
oversell.
check out Joey LaSalle, man, for November.
He is. But that's the whole problem with it. It's like the people who are trying to just be sensible get overshadowed by the people who just go so far out there. You know what I mean? The Democrats.
Yeah, because Patty's on the
Let
left.
7-year-old. Like 7-year-old boys, let them cut off their little thing. And then on the other side, they had 7-year-old immigrants want to rape somebody. It's like both y'all are not making sense. Like, y'all need to get out the way and let people who are coming to, like, saying, like you're talking about, I've got an idea for economic progress. I've got an idea how we're going to fix our schools. I've got an idea how we bring jobs back to the communities. I've got this passion to get in there. When I get into office, I'm going to get something done. I'm not going to spend time arguing about this idea of what you should believe necessarily, because that is what
No,
your
and brother
problem
Jonas,
is,
I think
America.
sometimes people, and don't get me wrong, I was one of those people because I didn't know, what I should get from a state representative or what I should get from a person on the state level of politics. One of the things that we're
Mhm.
always familiar with around here, locally, is like, your mayors, your city council people, what their responsibilities are. But it's like when you come to state politics, you're always wondering, or at least I would always get the question, running as a state representative, what does a state representative actually do? And so when you don't have people that are willing to engage the community, or they have a total
Mhm.
dysfunction, with their engagement with the community, because that's another
Yeah.
thing that we deal with too. You
We
have
just saw
people that,
somebody
they
lose a
might be
race
in the
because of that.
community, but yet still, they don't get stuff done, like it is that you're talking about. I think far too often, we overlook the fact that you're only in there for a certain amount of time, term limits,
Mhm.
and even in the reality that we live in, we only have a certain amount of time. And so I know, for a fact that far too often, us not holding, these people accountable, right? Because that's what
Mhm.
these campaigns are supposed to do. The campaigns are supposed to bring about accountability to the people who are in office, and it also supposed to bring accountability for the person who's trying to get in office, because they should actually be out campaigning. And so,
Yeah.
I think, when you do that, right, to engage in
Mhm.
this whole process, it's not for a process of, for the person to get in office, right, and to think that they're just there to grandstand, or they're just there, to
Exactly,
make, these
exactly.
fluffy statements about different things. You have even demonstrated it yourself by bringing the dollars home. And I think, right now, that's what we have to be focused on. Because even just yesterday, right, we saw the market,
Mhm.
taking a little bit of a turn than what it has been lately. Like, one of the things in one of the legislations that was even recently proposed, here in Missouri, was for the diversification of our currency, right? Because we see that
Mhm.
the dollar is going in bad, or it's in bad shape right now.
Uh-huh.
The global politics and things that are happening on the international scale has put the United States in conflicts with certain countries like Russia and China and Iran. And these aren't just, they ain't just new kids on the block. These are, and then,
No,
and then
no,
you
you're
also
right.
see them
They know how to
even
play the
starting to
game.
expand a little bit with, having relationships with Saudi Arabia and these other different places. So we're seeing, these global entities, starting to challenge the United States. And it's one of the reasons why I believe that, one of the most important ideologies at the moment is American first. And so, I even had a conversation with this young lady yesterday, because again, I'm asked pretty often, why are you Republican? And I can just sum it up for you real quick. I know I summed it up, already
Mhm.
before, but I believe it's necessary to get in my preacher mode and repeat myself, every once in a
Go
while.
ahead, preach.
And
Preach
it's
your
always
pulpit.
faith,
Yeah.
faith, family, and job creations, man. And so what better platform can you exist on? I mean, when we look at the demographics of the ninth district, right?
Mhm.
53% of the households, 53% of the households are led by single black women, brother Jonas. So
Mhm.
when you incorporate that with the failure of the school system, right? We're looking at
Mhm.
struggling women with kids who are put in school systems that are teaching them to fail, and we are
Mhm.
consistently given the narrative that everything is going okay in under the democratic regime, right? And that
Mhm.
there's no need to have some choices, because if we can just get things done here in a particular way. Like, one of the things that I've heard just recently, this weekend, we've had all kinds of shootings, all kinds of trauma, especially on the South Side, man. So shout out to those, or not shout out, but man, have those thoughts and prayers for those people,
Mhm.
that were murdered over the weekend. Um, because one
And
of the
there you
things
go. There's
that
something we don't
but
talk
no,
about
no, because
either.
yeah, I mean, because seriously, but I often have to tell people, I wasn't always in a business suit, right? I
Mhm.
wasn't always the kid that was listening to his elders, or
Yeah.
trying to do the most productive thing, right? But at the same
Well, he
time,
was productive, but it was just in a different manner. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because
yeah.
we
Well,
have
not
to
no,
step out
it
of.
was unproductive. It was unproductive. Anytime you're being destructive, man, it's very it's very unproductive. But one of the things that I noticed,
But I'm
right, is
saying at the same time,
we're
though, it
consistently but check me out. Let me finish this thought, right, and then I'm gonna
no,
give it
no,
back
but
over to you. But one of the things that I'm consistently hearing is like, we have to do more for the kids. We have to do more for the kids. But brother Jonas, have you noticed a lot of the things that we want to do for the kids are actually missing the point, because those kids that we're envisioning in our mind, they're not operating like kids. They
no,
are
no.
operating in a very, very much so an adult fashion. And do you think sometimes we are working backwards with trying to treat them like kids, or what are your thoughts and opinions about that, man?
Well,
Because
you know, with
I think
every generation, all kids want to be grown. You know,
right,
everybody is in a rush to be an adult until they get grown, and then they trying to get back. You know, and see, and I think
right,
that's a real problem because we even spoke about this when we talk about, let's say, Generation X. That is a generation of an adult children. You know what I mean? That they never fully grew up and embraced the idea of being in a concept and taking responsibility for leadership and shaping and molding those who came after it, you know what I mean? Because children often need somebody to look up to, and so and when they look up to somebody, then they want to see these figures and they begin patterning themselves after that. But there was a time where we were coming up where they were telling us we no matter where we were gonna be dead by the time we was 25, no matter what you did, this was gonna happen. If you did drugs or if you did that, it was just death, prison, and this and that. And kept they kept wrapping your minds around this whole idea. And meanwhile, this is the generation to do as I say and not as I do, and so it becomes disenfranchised. And so now you've got where these kids they're doing this. I was talking to a kid, and I thought he was somebody called him a drug dealer, and he said, "I don't sell drugs, I do them." And I said, I said, "What now?" And I said that even as a mindset today is even different. Like, there was, that blew me away. He just wanted to consume. He wasn't even on the economic or supply side. He's just a consumer. And so this idea that they've created sheep, and then sometimes kids and everybody are often going to rebel and abandon the so-called the idea of what people hold sacred, like the golden calves of the age before. They don't give a damn. And these kids today, like their culture different, and they think when they've got access to phones and it's instant gratification. You see these kids, they'll go out and shoot somebody and not even realize the reality of it till they're sitting in that room talking to a police officer and they're being told, like, bro, you're not going home. Like, you're going to prison. And it's because they're living so fast, but they're not being taught as kids. And it's because of failure of a system now. As you said, now these schools have failed the kids, but they've also failed their parents in a lot of times. And some of these other parents who dropped out of that. And then their parents dropped out. So now we've got 2, 3 cycles of people who do not believe in the educational system and do not have the benefit of an education that they need to empower their family and to get the right jobs. And so we've seen this compounding toxic toxic programs that then become a shackle, and then it's like they want to break out somehow. But do we allow them to? No. Then we kind of shame them, as we said. If you become a black Republican, how dare you think for yourself? You know what I mean? It's almost this idea they try to keep you on a plantation, like I'm a tell if you know what I mean? Like this idea that we can't take ourselves and say, look, that ain't working. I'm not doing it that way. I'm not doing it that way. Here's how we need to do it. If I can look down, I can tell you if everything's going wrong and nobody's got anything right, then we need to go a new way. Because if I see y'all, if you keep crashing the car while I'm in it, and you keep hitting every car on the road, and then you switch, and we keep letting the same 2 people switch, and we kept expecting a different result, that itself is the definition of insanity. You know
Hey,
what I
one
mean?
of one of the things, I mean, even though we went uncontested, for the Senate seat, we still had to get some Republican votes in there, right? And so it
Yes,
felt very, very good yesterday, man. My uncle, he voted for me. He typically
that's
votes Democrat all the time, every single time. And I gave him a call. I said, "Listen, Unc, I need you tomorrow. Please talk to Auntie. I need your vote. I really want you to grab a Republican ballot tomorrow." And he
woo, and
did. He
that's
did.
something
He,
for
he
people.
grabbed he
That's
grabbed the
great.
Republican ballot, and check it out. He even sent me a text. He said, nephew, I have never voted Republican in my life. And I sent him a text back. I said, guess what, Unc? Your ancestors are happy. And then
Yeah,
even said something to me, Brother Jonas. He was like, you know what? They did used to vote Republican until Nixon. So whatever it is
right.
with Nixon, we got to break down, with Nixon and his Southern strategy, because
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
but people forget, there were a lot of great things that happened for Black people under the Nixon administration, as far as minority business and contracting is concerned. I believe that we even got the Bureau of Economic Alliance. Is that the Bureau of Economic Union? Black
Yeah, yeah,
Economic
the
Union, the
BEU.
BEU,
Yeah, yeah.
from the Nixon era in administration. Am I right?
It began back then, and that was a large segment of the time too. But I think at the same time, the other time, that is where we saw the ramp up of law enforcement. So it was
Right,
a hand in hand thing, and
right.
we've also, but we forget that the Democrats at the same time too were the ones who were pushing these constantly destructive crime bills, and that we've seen that had this huge impact on the community. But yet, when we don't talk about that because like as you said, we don't focus on the idea that we had so many black businesses come through under the BEU and come out of that where our community was starting to grow and thrive and change. But then there was a shift in the 80s, in the early 80s with Reaganomics. And then we saw that, where greed took over. And we've talked about this before when you've got an entire nation that is looking to somebody like a man named Gordon Gekko, a guy who is saying greed is good and willing to destroy the whole infrastructure of your nation in order to make some money and not realize the economic fallout or impact it would have from all of those jobs and all of that industry simply to just not even the 1% benefited. Some of that money went so fast right back out of the country that our heads are still spinning as we catch on it. Because as you say, we as Americans have to be American first, but we've got to learn to keep a global eye and a global ear. We've got to learn to be able to see the world and how it's moving and understanding even at how in Missouri here, like you going to the state senate, knowing that your pork can
And you
make
know
a
what?
difference
And
in
brother
the
Jonas,
Senate.
that's another beautiful part, in my opinion, about getting over to the Republican Party. I think right now, man, especially with the way that the parties have shifted, we're really seeing a realignment take place. We are really seeing a
Yeah.
realignment take place, but it's a good realignment because when we talk about the
Mhm.
opportunities that actually come from, the overextended nature, like you said, the greed is good, from the overextended nature of the government trying to control everything, and coming from that socialist dynamic, we're not ignorant to the understanding that we do have some issues right now that exist within our society. But where should those opportunities come from, or how should those opportunities be developed, and how should those opportunities be created? And I think fundamentally speaking, it's better when you and I have the capacity to create those opportunities for ourselves and to dictate the opportunities that are created for us, and us to be thoroughly involved in the process. But it looks like, man, we're coming up on almost an hour here. We got a lot of
Yeah,
work to do, man. So one of
and
the
we
things that I
do,
want to
and I
do
just
right
wanted to
now
tap
at this
on what you
moment,
talk on one more time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Go
Well,
ahead, go
because
ahead.
I want to tap in your candidacy. I want to tell people to go to his webpage and donate because, as we're saying, we need candidates who are coming forward with ideas and that can engage and inspire the community and people want to get out and be involved with, and then go in and actually get there and create a vision and implement it and get things done. Because, as he said, we're defining a new path right here. We're not taking anything that's from the past, his own path forward inside of a party that has been traditionally in our community, people forget, is responsible for even writing the Emancipation Proclamation and supporting it. This is the party that was responsible for even the early civil rights action. It was just, this is where, again, we come back to having real politicians. Like a man like Lyndon Johnson made a shrewd move in 64 and 67, and he kind of took control of things. But when you've got people such as yourself who are students of politics, in addition to economics, in addition to your community, and want to get involved rather than these people who pay somebody $175,000 to make them look good on TV. And then they get down there, and then what do we have? We've got a whole century, we're almost 20, a quarter in a century, And we've gone through four financial crises. You know what I mean? We've seen unnecessarily, we've almost we've almost been crippled twice just by social issues alone that pulled at the seams of our society to such a degree that nobody even realized we was going broke. They had them so distracted and so muddled that they didn't even realize they was getting their pockets picked, and nobody was looking out for them. You know what I mean? In office to stop and say, "Look, yo, like we got to stop this. We got to put out this fire. If we don't put out this fire, we're not gonna eat. Nobody will be eating, you know." And so it's about this new fire and this new idea that you're showing them that I can define myself. I made this decision to come to the right. I've been over there on the left, and I'm choosing to walk this path forward because that's what it means to be independent. That's what it means to be life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you're seizing that pursuit, and you're taking it forward, and you gotta be, in a place that it hasn't happened in 100 years. Where they've had control of a place, and you're taking it into the heart of the matter and being that change. And you have to, give kudos to that.
Man, brother Jonas, I appreciate you. Everybody, again, don't forget to don't forget to go to the web page and make a $5 contribution if you can. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace and blessings, and I'll see you on the campaign trail.
And
Brother
share it.
Jonas,
We'll be
we out.
back next week.